The silence in the Everglades is not an absence of sound, but a physical pressure that crushes the senses. In August 2023, a GPS signal became the only trace of a life that was slowly being extinguished. There were no recorded screams, only the constant movement of a digital dot advancing into nothingness. The Florida swamp doesn't usually give back what it decides to take for itself in the deepest hours of the night. Elias Thorne was 24 years old and had a common routine as a rideshare driver in Miami. On that Tuesday night, the air was saturated with the heavy humidity that precedes summer thunderstorms. At 11:42, he accepted a fare that would take him to the edges of Highway 41. The final destination was a dead-end service road, where civilization ends and the silt begins. The app's logs show the trip was completed, but Elias never started his return trip back home. His girlfriend found the silence strange and tried calling repeatedly without getting any answer from the young man. The following morning, Elias's silver sedan was located by the Border Patrol parked on the shoulder. The doors were unlocked, the key remained in the ignition, and the engine still radiated a residual heat. Inside the vehicle, investigators found the wallet intact and a cup of coffee that was still half full. There were no signs of a struggle, no bloodstains, or evidence that a large animal had attacked. The driver's seat was adjusted back, as if Elias had been resting before stepping out of the car. However, the element that turned a disappearance into a dark enigma was the tracking signal. Elias's smartphone, mounted on the dashboard, was no longer in the vehicle when authorities arrived. Miami-Dade police technicians managed to track the active signal through the account linked to the GPS. The device was half a mile away, moving in a straight line toward the interior of the swamp. The rhythm of the movement was slow, constant, and perfectly uniform, defying the logic of the rugged terrain. The Everglades terrain consists of sawgrass, submerged roots, and quicksand that makes every step a struggle. An average human would take hours to cover that distance without the aid of equipment or watercraft. Still, the signal advanced without hesitation, as if something were gliding over the surface of the black water. Search teams were dispatched immediately, but what they found at the indicated location was a void. Thermal drones flew over the precise coordinates provided by the satellite in real time. No heat signature was detected in that area, only the dense vegetation and motionless alligators. The signal, however, continued to emit location pulses every 5 minutes, penetrating deeper into the preserve. It seemed as though Elias's phone was being carried by something that possessed no body temperature. During the first 12 hours, police believed it was a kidnapping with unknown motivations. The absence of a ransom demand and Elias's quiet profile made this theory increasingly fragile. Investigators analyzed the call history and the driver's last communications looking for any clues. The last message sent by him said only, "The passenger isn't in the back seat, but the door opened." This short, disjointed sentence cast a shadow of dread over the officers conducting the criminal case. Witnesses living near the preserve reported seeing low, bluish lights crossing through the swamp. These were not search flashlights, but pale orbs that seemed to float above the stagnant waterline. Meanwhile, Elias's signal completed 18 hours of continuous activity in the heart of the darkness. The swamp is a natural graveyard of secrets that the state of Florida tries to hide under tourism. There are areas where GPS fails and compasses spin without direction, confusing even the most expert guides. Elias was in one of these dead zones, and yet his signal was the strongest ever recorded. Forensic tech experts began to question if the device was still physically operating at all. Have you ever stopped to think that the videos you just watched with flawless scripts and engaging narrations might have been created by someone who never even touched a camera or a microphone? There is a new digital elite profiting heavily behind the scenes of YouTube and social media, building massive channels without ever showing their faces or spending thousands of dollars on equipment. While most people are frozen by the fear of being on camera, these individuals are using the hidden power of artificial intelligence to generate automated content that works and earns for them 24 hours a day. The secret to dominating this game isn't about having a famous face. It's about knowing how to command the right tools to create scripts, voices, and visuals that magnetically hold the audience's attention. I've gained access to a strategic method that reveals the exact roadmap for you to build your own invisible digital empire. Mastering AI to turn clicks into a real source of income, it is the perfect opportunity for those seeking financial and geographical freedom without having to deal with the pressure of being a public figure on the internet. Best of all, you can seize this opportunity right now for a symbolic price. The complete training is under an exclusive promotion, dropping from $97 to just $17. This is your passport to unlocking the knowledge you need to start your professional journey with AI today. Click the first link in the description to secure your spot while this discount is still active. As the second night fell, the mystery took on the contours of purely psychological terror. The signal stopped suddenly in a region known as the Cypress Heart, an almost impenetrable location. There, the trees grow so close together that moonlight is unable to touch the ground or the water. Police decided to wait for daybreak, fearing that sending men in at night would result in more tragedies. The radio silence during the early hours was interrupted by an unexpected and disturbing technical discovery. Elise's cloud server began uploading audio files recorded automatically by the security system. They were short clips, 5 seconds each, captured while the phone moved through total darkness. The first audio contained only the sound of heavy breathing, but it didn't sound like it was of human origin. The second clip featured a metallic noise, as if something were being dragged over submerged rocks. The third, and perhaps the most terrifying, recorded Elise's voice whispering a single word: "Stop." The voice was distorted, weighted with extreme fatigue, as if he was speaking under the effect of sedatives. There were no sounds of footsteps around him, only the incessant buzz of insects and the wind in the trees. Detectives analyzed the metadata of the files to verify the integrity of the received recordings. Everything indicated that the audios were recorded in real time, exactly at the coordinates where the signal was. This meant that Elias, or his device, was still alive and present in the middle of that green vastness. Hope for a successful rescue began to fight against the horror of what was being heard. The ground search began at 6 in the morning with a task force composed of 20 armed men. They followed the digital trail left over the last 48 hours, cutting through vegetation with machetes. What they found along the way defied the logic of any criminal forensics performed previously. There were no footprints, no broken branches, and no traces of torn clothing or personal belongings. It was as if the object emitting the signal were levitating a few inches above the thick mud. The tracking dogs, trained to locate bodies and living people, stopped suddenly at a specific point. They began to howl in a way that the trainers described as a pure wail of absolute terror. The animals refused to move forward, sitting down and trembling before an ancient grove of cypress trees. One of the officers noticed something hanging from a high branch, about 15 feet off the ground. It was Elias's ID badge, perfectly clean, without a single mark of mud or any wear and tear. How the object ended up there, in such a high and inaccessible place, remains an unanswered question. The cell phone signal indicated that the device was exactly beneath that tree, under the water. Police divers entered the murky water, feeling the bottom in search of the electronic device. After minutes of tension, one of the divers emerged, holding Elias's smartphone with trembling hands. The device was dry inside a protective case, despite having spent hours submerged in the swamp. When they turned the screen on, the battery still showed 90%, which is impossible after so much GPS use. What the technicians found in the device's photo gallery changed the course of the entire official investigation. There was a sequence of 12 photographs taken at exactly 10-minute intervals during the early morning. The images showed the same perspective, the canopy of the trees seen from below, in motion. But in the last photo, the camera caught a reflection on the lens that should not have been in that place. The reflection showed a pair of pale eyes, without pupils, staring directly into the phone's sensor. They weren't the eyes of an alligator, a panther, or any known predator that inhabits the Florida ecosystem. They were eyes that carried an ancient intelligence, predatory and deeply malevolent in its essence. The image was sent for forensic analysis in Washington, but the results were inconclusive and vague. From that moment on, the official narrative began to fragment into contradictory and confusing theories. Some investigators suggested that Elias was a victim of a cult that operates deep within the nature preserve. Others believe he encountered something that modern science has not yet been able to catalog or understand. Elias's family, devastated, hired private investigators who reached even darker conclusions. They discovered that Elias's disappearance was not the first event with these exact characteristics. Since the 1970s, at least 8 drivers have vanished on that same route along Highway 41. In every case, the vehicles were found abandoned and without any signs of immediate physical violence. And in every case, small personal items were found in locations that were impossible to reach. Elias Thorne's case became a landmark in American mystery culture due to the use of technology. Never before had a disappearance been monitored so closely by digital signals and GPS coordinates. The precision of the data colliding with the physical impossibility of the terrain created a haunting paradox. Florida authorities eventually ended the active search, declaring Elias a missing person. However, Elias Thorne's phone signal was not the last thing the swamp transmitted that week. A shortwave radio at a lookout post caught a strange frequency on the night the search was closed. A voice, which many swear belongs to Elias, was reciting numbers in a rhythmic and hypnotic sequence. There were geographic coordinates that pointed to the exact center of the Gulf of Mexico, in deep waters. The mystery of the Florida swamp signal continues to defy reason and disturb those involved. Even with the device in police possession, location notifications continued to appear on Elias's account. It was as if a digital ghost were replicating the driver's trail in other parts of the state. Servers in different parts of the country recorded accesses to Elias's account from non-existent addresses. The investigation entered a phase of massive data analysis to try and explain the technical anomalies. Cybersecurity experts stated that Elias's phone was acting like a relay station for something else. Something was using the device's frequency to send encrypted data packets to the satellite. The content of this data was never decrypted, remaining a code of dark and impenetrable blocks. While technology failed to provide answers, the human side of the tragedy became increasingly bizarre. Elias's mother reported that she started receiving video calls from her son's number in the middle of the night. Upon answering, she saw only a dense gray mist and heard the sound of water running softly in the background. No one spoke, but she felt a heavy presence watching her through the small lens of the camera. These calls lasted exactly 33 seconds before abruptly dropping into total silence. The phone company insisted that Elias's number was deactivated and out of service in the system. There were no outgoing records for those calls in the local telecommunications company's official logs. It was a communication that seemed to ignore the laws of physics and conventional network infrastructure. In the swamp, cleanup crews working in the Cypress Heart area report strange phenomena. They claim that the spot where the phone was found emits a persistent smell of ozone and sulfur. The vegetation around that specific tree died in a perfect circle, turning gray and brittle. Birds and insects avoid the area, creating a vacuum of sound that is described as unsettling and oppressive. A former FBI agent, interested in the case, suggested that Elias Thorne might have crossed an invisible boundary. Theories exist about folds in space-time in areas of high geomagnetic energy, like certain parts of Florida. To him, the slow and steady movement of the GPS was the reflection of Elias walking in another dimension. A dimension that overlaps our own, but where the rules of distance and biology are distorted. This theory, though fantastic, began to gain traction in forums specialized in paranormal events. Reports of missing people who return frequently mention the loss of a sense of time and space. Elias Thorne, however, never returned to tell his version of what happened that August night. His name now belongs to the long list of souls devoured by the green vastness of the Everglades. Elias's vehicle was auctioned months later, but the new owner returned it to the dealership within a week. He claimed that when driving at night, the car's GPS would turn on by itself and map a route to the swamp. Even disconnected from the internet, the navigation system displayed the destination point. Highway 41, whispered voices could be heard coming through the turned-off speakers of the automobile's dashboard. The case remains open at the Miami-Dade Police Department, but with no new leads or evidence. Elias Thorne's file is classified under the label of anomalous and unexplained circumstances. Veteran detectives avoid talking about the subject, treating it as a reminder of what they cannot control. The swamp, motionless and ancient, keeps the truth under its murky waters and intertwined roots. Many believe that Elias is still out there, somehow, trapped in a cycle of eternal transmission. His life was reduced to a radio signal that occasionally cuts through the silence of emergency frequencies. A digital reminder that not everything that disappears ceases to exist in the world we know. Sometimes, the signal is just the beginning of a journey to a place where the light does not reach. Elias Thorne's story serves as a warning to those who venture onto the lonely roads of Florida. The technology we use to feel safe might be the very thing that records our descent into the abyss. The GPS guides us along the path, but it doesn't tell us what is waiting at the end of the plotted route. And in the heart of the Everglades, what waits usually has patience and a hunger for new frequencies. If you look at the digital map of that region today, you will see only the vast green patch of the preserve. But for those who know the story, every satellite pulse in that area carries a different weight. Elias Thorne's signal may have physically stopped, but its echo continues to disturb the sleep of many. The swamp never forgets, and it rarely allows the outside world to forget its victims. The absence of a body allowed urban legends to flourish around the young driver's name. Some say he became part of the ecosystem itself, a consciousness merged with the slime and the silt. Others believe he was taken by something that doesn't belong to this planet or this physical reality. The technical evidence suggests that the truth is much colder and more frightening than any fiction. The recovered audios remain the most damning proof that something terrible occurred that night. Advanced audio analysis detected infrasonic frequencies hidden beneath Elias Thorne's whisper. These frequencies are known to cause paranoia, extreme fear, and hallucinations in human beings. Who or what was emitting these sounds remains the greatest secret of the swamp case. The last photograph, with those eyes without pupils, was removed from public records by a court order. The claim was that the image caused unnecessary distress and did not contribute to solving the crime. Leaked copies on the internet show a figure that seems to camouflage perfectly among the tree shadows, a presence that seems to be laughing at the human attempt to capture its essence through a lens. To this day, rideshare drivers report a sense of discomfort when passing Highway 41 after midnight. Some say their phones start vibrating without notifications, emitting unusual heat in the mount. Others claim to have seen a young man standing on the shoulder, holding a smartphone that glows brightly. When they pull over to offer help, the figure vanishes into the mist before the car completely stops. Florida is a state built on land that was taken from nature aggressively and quickly. Perhaps Ilias's disappearance is a way for the land to take back what was lost through time. Or perhaps it's just the result of a random encounter with the pure evil that inhabits wild places. There is no comfort in the possible answers, only a restlessness that refuses to leave the mind. Elias Thorne's final signal is a reminder that we are all just data in a vast and unknown network. We can be tracked, mapped, and archived, but our essence remains vulnerable to the unexplained. The next time your GPS indicates an unknown path, think twice before following the route. The swamp is always listening, and it always has room for one more signal in its dark network. The official investigations may have stopped, but the mystery of Elias Thorne lives in every shadow of the glades. The truth is submerged, protected by mud and time, waiting for the next signal to be emitted. The silence of the swamp is the only conclusion we will ever have regarding that young Miami driver, a story that ends in a digital dot moving slowly into the eternal darkness of Florida. Comment below what you believe happened to Elias Thorne, and if the signal was actually him. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more investigations into the dark side of Florida. Leave a like if this disturbing case also made you question the safety of the technology we carry.